Chapter 1056. Hey! Shangguan Linglan called out quietly. He blinked and looked at Xing Er as he asked, "Why are you so nice to me?" When Xing Er heard Shangguan Linglan's question, he paused for a moment before looking up at Shanghai Linglan. He picked up the tablecloth and reached out to gently wipe the soup off the corner of Shanghai Linglan's mouth. He calmly and deeply gazed at him and said, "Because I like it." The moment second Xing's words fell, that gentle action directly hit Shangguan Linglan's heart. Her body trembled slightly, and her face instantly turned red. She lowered her head somewhat nervously, and her fingers gripped the blanket tightly, as if she was trying to hide something. Like what? Shanghai Linglan tilted his head slightly and asked carefully. Xing Er looked at Shanghai Linglan's expression and didn't know what to think. Suddenly, he reached out to Shanghai Linglan and pinched Shanghai Linglan's chin with his warm fingers. He turned Shanghai Linglan's head towards him. "I like you." Xing Er's pitch-black eyes met Shangguan Linglan's. His gaze was so passionate. The words that came out of his mouth in that instant made Shanghai Linglan's heart stop beating. He heard those words with his own ears. That indescribable feeling made Shanghai Linglan unable to breathe. He stared intently at Xing Er. Looking at his serious expression, he suddenly felt like a child who had just received candy. He was so happy and joyful. That afternoon, Jing Yu and Lu Miaoqiu leaned against the windowsill and heard those words with their own ears. After a long, long time, Xing Er and Shanghai Linglan both blushed for a long time. So Xing Er also knew how to say sweet nothings? No one was cold and heartless. It was just that the person he wanted to warm wasn't you. Jing Yu and Lu Miaoqiu were sitting in the courtyard outside the house. They could vaguely hear the conversation coming from inside the house. The two of them looked at each other and a faint smile appeared on their faces. However, deep in their eyes, there was a trace of sadness that could not be dispersed. In the evening, Jing Yu went to Xiao Chen's spirit room again and gently tidied up Xiao Chen's clothes. She leaned against the edge of the bed and held Xiao Chen's hand tightly. She closed her eyes slightly and didn't make a sound. This was the scene that Qinggu saw when he arrived. Jing Yu would stay here every day for 2 hours without moving. Ninth sister-in-law. Qinggu walked over to Jing Yu's side. Jing Yu tilted her head and looked up. Ninth brother's body should be buried. Qinggu pursed his lips slightly and looked at Jing Yu. It will be an auspicious day in 2 days. It's time to bury ninth brother. Jing Yu trembled violently when she heard Qing Ji's words. She tightened her grip on Xiao Chen's cold hand. Qinggu pursed his lips when he saw that Jing Yu didn't say anything. Jing Yu was silent for a long time before she finally lowered her head and said, "I understand. Get someone to make the arrangements." Qinggu heaved a huge sigh of relief when he saw that Jing Yu had finally relented. Everyone was happy that Shangguan Linglan had regained consciousness. Jing Yu could tell that Shangguan Hongwen had already accepted Xing Er as his son-in-law. However, he was still very unhappy about it. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry when she saw that. Everything in Jinling town was on track. However, Jing Yu was slightly surprised when she heard that the northern pastoral troops had retreated. When Xing Er came to report this, Jing Yu was writing in her room. Chapter 1057. Is the information reliable? Jing Yu frowned slightly as she looked up at Xing Er and asked. Yes. Xing Er nodded slightly and replied, "They have indeed retreated." Ah. Jing Yu smiled faintly and said, "This Hellion Theo is still so smart." After Jing Yu responded, she put down the things in her hand, stood up, and walked to the side of the window. Looking at the yellowed leaves outside, she suddenly remembered that it was already autumn. Xing Er. Jing Yu paused slightly and muttered unconsciously, "Do you think Xiao Chen really left?" Xing Er heard Jing Yu's question and his breathing suddenly stopped. He lowered his head slightly and didn't say anything. Jing Yu looked out the window silently. Looking at the falling leaves, she was slightly lost in thought. Finally, as if she understood something, she lowered her head slightly and said, "Did you find Xing Yi's body?" Xing Er replied in a deep voice, "I brought people to search everywhere but only found a charred corpse and Xing Yi's sword." Jing Yu heard Xing Er's reply and her expression turned cold. If the sword lives, the person lives. If the sword dies, the person dies. Xing Er lowered his head and said, Xing Yi will never leave his sword even if he dies. This is the oath he made when he became a swordsman. Jing Yu heard Xing Er's words and her heart skipped a beat. She suddenly realized that Xing Er was a swordsman from the pugilistic world. It was said that those who could be taught by the supreme leader were all heroes of their generation. How did he become Xiao Chen's secret guard? Xing Yi is not a secret guard. Xing Er seemed to have seen through Jing Yu's confusion and pursed his lips slightly. He said, he is just the person in charge of the secret guards. He's a friend of Master's. I see. Jing Yu nodded in realization. In the past, she always felt that Xing Yi and Xing Er were different in some way. Previously, she thought it was a difference in personality, but now it seemed that wasn't the case. Oh right, I can't find something. Can you help me call Miaoqiu over? Jing Yu looked sideways at Xing Er and said. Xing Er nodded slightly and turned to call Lu Miaoqiu over. When Lu Miaoqiu heard the news and came over, she saw Jing Yu rummaging through the room. Lu Miaoqiu frowned in confusion and asked, Jing Yu, what are you looking for? Jade pendant. The jade pendant that Xiao Chen gave me. When Jing Yu heard Lu Miaoqiu's voice, she stopped and turned to look at Lu Miaoqiu. She frowned slightly and said, Do you remember where I put my jade pendant? I can't find it no matter how hard I try. Lu Miaoqiu looked at Jing Yu in confusion. She didn't know what jade pendant Jing Yu was talking about. Jing Yu looked at Lu Miaoqiu's confused expression and quickly said, It's the jade pendant that Xiao Chen gave me. I used this jade pendant to block a disaster for the restaurant. I told you before. Oh, I remember now. When Lu Miaoqiu heard this, a look of understanding appeared in her eyes. She frowned slightly and asked Jing Yu, Why are you looking for this jade pendant for no reason? Lu Miaoqiu looked helplessly at Jing Yu and blinked slightly. I don't know. Jing Yu frowned and said, I just suddenly wanted to look for this jade pendant. I always feel anxious when I can't find it. Really? Lu Miaoqiu shook her head helplessly and said, You can't just randomly look for it. Think carefully about when you took off this jade pendant and where you put it. Chapter 1058. I remember that it was Xiao Chen who helped me take it off. It must have been placed in the dressing box after he took it off, but I haven't found it yet. Jing Yu sat in front of the dressing table and rummaged through the boxes. She said in confusion, Why is it gone? Aya, what did you use to store the jade pendant? When Lu Miaoqiu heard Jing Yu's words, she paused for a moment. Then, as if she suddenly thought of something, she stared at Jing Yu and asked, I used a small pouch to store it. The pouch even has the lotus flower I embroidered for the first time. Jing Yu blinked and looked at Lu Miaoqiu as she answered. After Lu Miaoqiu heard this, she lowered her head awkwardly and said, Jing Yu, do you still remember what you gave me on my wedding day? I remember. I remember that it was a very exquisite box. Jing Yu nodded and replied. However, halfway through her sentence, Jing Yu suddenly paused. She looked at Lu Miaoqiu in shock and said, Could it be that the box didn't contain a night pearl? There's no night pearl, it's just a jade pendant. Lu Miaoqiu said helplessly, At the time, I was wondering why you gave me a jade pendant from the 9 emperors. However, I thought that since you gave it to me, it must have a purpose, so I accepted it. Furthermore, it was placed in that misshapen embroidered pouch of yours. Because of this, I was angry for a long time. To think that you would actually give me something like this. But thinking about it, it's also interesting. Lu Miaoqiu slightly pursed her lips and smiled. Jing Yu frowned with a conflicted expression. She turned to Lu Miaoqiu and asked, Then where is the jade pendant now? It's in the Crown Prince's palace. Lu Miaoqiu lowered her head helplessly and said, I came out in a hurry and didn't bring anything with me. Naturally, I didn't bring the jade pendant. It's in the Crown Prince's palace. If I want it now. I'm afraid, oh my God. Jing Yu looked at the sky, speechless. What a huge mistake. She actually gave the wrong thing. No wonder after a long time, when Xiao Chen took out a night pearl and asked her why it was here, Jing Yu thought that Xiao Chen was playing a magic trick on her. Lu Miaoqiu looked at Jing Yu's expression. Jing Yu's, so she was a little embarrassed and asked, "Is this jade pendant? Why are you looking for it?" I suddenly thought of it, so I wanted to look for it." Jing Yu lowered her head and said, "Forget it. Since you can't find it, then forget it." Jing Yu stood up and looked around at the things that were messed up. She silently tidied them up. As Jing Yu was tidying up, she picked up a stack of books. Suddenly, a yellowed piece of craft paper fell out of the book. Huh! Jing Yu looked at the piece of paper that fell out and flipped through the book. She thought that it was a book that fell out, but she realized that it wasn't a book that fell out. It was a piece of paper that was sandwiched between the books. A blank piece of craft paper? Jing Yu picked up the piece of paper in confusion. She was still thinking about what this piece of craft paper was and why it was here. The moment she saw the piece of paper, she suddenly reacted. Her eyes widened slightly and she said, "Oh, I remember now." "What's wrong? Isn't this just a normal piece of paper?" Lu Miaoqiu heard Jing Yu's shout and walked over. Chapter 1059. Ha! Jing Yu laughed and said, "Do you still remember when Nenli came to Tokyo, he brought the 9 palaces checkerboard? At that time, when I broke the chessboard, I hid a blank cowhide scroll in the chessboard. It was this thing." I remember. Lu Miaoqiu nodded and said, "At that time, you asked Ijuan to solve the checkerboard. It was said that even a street beggar could solve the checkerboard, and Nanli couldn't even do it. This story was very popular in Tokyo at that time. After breaking this chess game, I asked Xiao Yi for a pass and took this cowhide scroll with me. I didn't expect that this cowhide scroll would be brought here," Jing Yu said as she stood up and spread the cowhide scroll on the table. "What are you trying to do?" Lu Miaoqiu looked at Jing Yu's actions and asked curiously. "Of course I want to see if there is any treasure on it," Jing Yu said with a smile. Speaking of which, when Jing Yu received the cowhide scroll, her first thought was that she must learn from the television when she returned home. She must use fire to burn, fetch water, and so on. Wasn't that what was shown on television? Those wordless heavenly books and whatnot, she must have gotten something from somewhere. She spent a lot of effort to get it. What if it was really a treasure? That was why Jing Yu had asked for this cowhide scroll back then. However, she had forgotten about it as soon as she returned to the prince's mansion. She didn't expect that she would find this thing when she rummaged through the cowhide scroll today. "Jing Yu, what are you doing?" When Lu Miaoqiu saw Jing Yu take a sip and spit out the tea onto the craft paper, her eyes widened and she asked in astonishment. No reaction? Jing Yu watched as the water soaked the craft paper, but nothing appeared on it after a long time. Jing Yu didn't believe it and took the other half of the craft paper to burn on the candle. Lu Miaoqiu stood at the side, dumbfounded. "Jing Yu?" She called Jing Yu silently, but Jing Yu ignored her. "Why is there no reaction?" Jing Yu looked at the cowhide scroll and almost burned it. However, she didn't see any reaction for a long time. She took the cowhide scroll back and stared at it with a complicated expression. She didn't know what to do. "Jing Yu?" Lu Miaoqiu called again. Jing Yu looked at Lu Miaoqiu blankly. "What's wrong?" Jing Yu blinked and looked at Lu Miaoqiu. "Are you sick? Do you have a fever? Are you not feeling well? How about I get Qinggu to take a look at you?" Lu Miaoqiu looked at Jing Yu anxiously. Jing Yu heard Lu Miaoqiu's words and the corner of her mouth twitched. "I'm not sick." Jing Yu stared at Lu Miaoqiu and said, "I'm really trying to see if something will appear. But it doesn't seem to work." Jing Yu frowned and looked at the leather scroll in her hand. "Is there something wrong with my posture?" Jing Yu tried a few more times, but there was no result. She immediately cursed in her heart. Sure enough, the TV shows were all lies. When Jing Yu looked up to look for Lu Miaoqiu, she found that Lu Miaoqiu was missing. Then Jing Yu heard voices coming from outside the house. Lu Miaoqiu walked in anxiously with Qinggu. Chapter 1060. "Yeah, doesn't seem normal," Lu Miaoqiu said as she walked quickly. "Is it because of Xiao Chen's death that she went crazy? Come and help her see what's wrong." Jing Yu had just walked to the door when she heard Lu Miaoqiu's solemn words. The corner of her eyes twitched and she stood at the door with a dark expression. "You scared me to death." Lu Miaoqiu turned around and saw Jingyu standing at the door. She was shocked and jumped away. She looked at Jingyu awkwardly and said, "Ye, are you done?" "I'm not crazy." Jingyu was speechless. No matter how she looked at it, she felt that Lu Miaoqiu's gaze was very strange. Jingyu rolled her eyes and pulled over Qinggu, who was completely confused, and said, "You came at the right time. Come and see if there's anything on this cowhide scroll." What? Qinggu was pulled over to the table by Jingyu. Jingyu pointed at the cowhide scroll and said, "Look at this and see if there's anything on it." Qinggu stared at the cowhide for a long time. He bent over and sniffed it. Then he asked hesitantly, "I smell the scent of tea leaves and the scent of saliva?" "Oh, that's my saliva." Jingyu replied calmly. "What?" Qinggu quickly jumped away and looked at Jingyu hesitantly. He said, "You actually licked the cowhide scroll? Licked your head?" Jingyu glared at Qinggu and said, "Didn't you see anything else on it? Other than the cowhide scroll, what else could there be?" Qinggu looked at Jingyu and silently began to wonder if Jingyu was crazy. Lu Miaoqiu looked at the two's actions and speechlessly pressed her forehead. She turned around and wanted to grab Qinggu, but she didn't expect her movement to be too big. She bumped into the table and her sleeve knocked over the pot used to wash the brush. Unfortunately, all the water poured onto the cowhide scroll. Jingyu panicked and wanted to wipe it with something. But when she looked, she was stunned by the scene in front of her. This. Jingyu's eyes widened. She looked at the originally indiscernible cowhide scroll. Something was slowly avoided in the ink. Jingyu hurriedly brushed the brush on the cowhide scroll. "What is this?" After Jingyu brushed the brush, she saw a magnified version of the word big on the cowhide scroll. "Dog." Qinggu looked at the word that was revealed and silently spat out a word. "Are you blind? That is a hole that I accidentally burned." Jingyu heard Qingji's words and glared at Qinggu angrily. Qinggu heard this and suddenly coughed. He said quietly, "In this big world, only you would burn this piece of paper and even want to burn words. Don't talk nonsense." Jingyu stared at Qinggu with slight embarrassment and said, "Why is there a word big on it? There are small words here." Qinggu heard this and also came over. He pointed at the small words at the bottom left corner and said, "But, what is written here? Control the beastiskinkenlet world." Jingyu silently recited a string of English words. She stared blankly with her eyes wide open. Qinggu, who was standing by the side, had no idea what Jingyu was saying. Chapter 1061. This is Beast Tamed, King of the World. Jingyu composed the words in her mind, then widened her eyes and said, "Beast-taming king can contain the world." What does this mean? When Qinggu heard Jingyu's answer, his eyes widened, then he turned to look at Jingyu and asked, "How do you know these words? How do you know what it means?" Qingji's face was full of surprise. "Yes." Jingyu excitedly picked up the cowhide scroll. Looking at the cowhide scroll, she felt that this thing was not simple. Beast-taming king. This phrase has been passed down for a long time, but what does the phrase, "can contain the world," mean? Qinggu straightened up, frowned slightly, and asked Jingyu, "I've seen the records in the Tokyo." Jingyu pursed her lips and said, "There was a mention of the phrase, can contain the world, which is the origin of the Holy Family. It praises the young master for being a tolerant person who can save people and accept all living things. However, I don't know what it means when it appears here. What do you think?" Qinggu frowned slightly as he looked at Jingyu and asked, "I don't know, but the only thing I'm sure of is that this thing has something to do with the abnormal pupils." Jingyu shook her head slightly and answered. Qinggu was speechless and said, "Is there something else in this world that can tame beasts?" When Jingyu heard Qingji's words, her originally indifferent heart suddenly trembled, and she widened her eyes in shock. She turned to look at Qinggu and said, "You're right, there really is something else in this world that can tame beasts." "What?" Qinggu probably didn't expect that his words would remind Jingyu of something, causing Jingyu to widen her eyes in shock. "Using sound to control beasts," Jingyu said solemnly. "What about Yi Shui? Why hasn't there been any news from Yi Shui?" I don't know. Qinggu was confused. He looked at Jingyu's serious face and suddenly became nervous. He swallowed his saliva and didn't dare to speak. Jingyu stared at the craft paper for a long time. She didn't know what the words on it were trying to express or what Jingyu was trying to convey. What was he trying to express? Or was it a sign of something? Or was it a warning? Go get Xing Er and ask him about Yi Shui's situation, Jingyu finally said after a moment of silence. After Qinggu and Lu Miaoqiu left, Xing Er didn't bring any news from Yi Shui. Ever since Yi Shui left that time, she had disappeared without a trace. Jingyu frowned slightly, not knowing what to do next. Ever since Jingyu received the words on the craft paper, she sat in her room all day long, thinking hard. However, she still couldn't figure it out. In the blink of an eye, it was the day of Xiao Chen's burial. There wasn't much fanfare, but everyone silently sent Xiao Chen off. Jingyu didn't cry. She just knelt in front of Xiao Chen's grave and didn't get up. Xiao Chen's grave was in the east of the Roman forest. It was a plain where one could see very far. All the soldiers, all the people who could walk were there. Everyone was silent. Jingyu personally watched Xiao Chen's burial. She personally scattered the yellow soil. She looked up at the wind blowing past and saw the fallen leaves on the ground. Jingyu slowly lowered her head. This was a silent funeral. Pairs of eyes watched as Xiao Chen was buried. Jingyu looked at the wordless tombstone and pursed her lips slightly. Beside Xiao Chen's grave, there was a small tombstone. Chapter 1062. Everyone's eyes fell on Jingyu. They watched as Jingyu knelt in front of the two new tombstones. Revenge, how can I name it? Jingyu looked at Xiao Chen's tombstone and said calmly, when I get my revenge, I will come to accompany you. Wait for me. When Jingyu finished speaking, Shengguan Linglan and Lu Miaoqiu, who were behind Jingyu, trembled. They seemed to have expected Jingyu to say this, but when they heard Jingyu say it, they still felt heavy. Our child. Jingyu looked at the small tombstone beside Xiao Chen. Her eyes were filled with pain. She said slowly, we didn't even have time to name him. She is here to accompany you. At this point, Jingyu suddenly stopped talking. Her body stiffened as she knelt on the ground without moving. Everyone stood silently behind Jingyu. Not long after, some of the wounded soldiers who had forced themselves to come couldn't hold on any longer and left one after another. Lu Miaoqiu helped Shengguan Linglan back. Only Qinggu and Xing Er stayed by Jingyu's side. Madam. Second Xing slowly stepped forward and said, First young Master Jing has already rushed back. He should be able to reach Jinling by sunset today. As Second Xing finished speaking, Jingyu's body, which had been motionless all this time, finally moved. Before Xiao Chen sent out his troops, Jing Lang had been sent to deliver food, but he did not expect so many earth-shattering changes to occur. On the way back, he was intercepted and almost all the food was cut off. The soldiers escorting the food were also killed. If Jing Lang didn't plan ahead, he probably wouldn't have made it back. Fortunately, he came back safe and sound. Really? When Jingyu heard the news of Jing Lang's return, her eyes immediately lit up as she asked. Yes. Second Xing nodded firmly. A smile finally appeared on Jingyu's face. Thank goodness Big Brother was still here. Jingyu finally left the cemetery and followed Xing Er and Qinggu back to the city. When the sun set, she heard that Jing Lang was back. Jingyu rushed out of the gate to welcome him. She saw Jing Lang dismounting from his horse. Jing Lang's skin was a lot darker, and he had also lost a lot of weight. His head was also wrapped in white gauze. Jingyu stood in front of the manor's door and looked at Jing Lang's sunken eyes. She could almost see how Jing Lang had been avoiding the enemy's pursuit for so long. Big brother. The moment she saw Jing Lang, Jingyu's eyes became misty. You. Although Jing Lang's figure was thinner, his dark and bright eyes were still the same. When he saw Jingyu's figure, his eyes were filled with joy and pity. He strode towards Jingyu. Jingyu couldn't hold it in anymore. She ran into Jing Lang's arms and hugged him tightly. His originally strong body was now so uncomfortable. Jingyu's heart ached. When she thought about how her big brother almost didn't make it back, she hugged him even tighter. Jing Lang hugged Jingyu tightly and said, It's okay, It's okay. Big brother is back. Big brother. The tears that she had been holding back for so long suddenly collapsed when Jing Lang said, Big brother is back. All the strength that she had built up in her heart suddenly collapsed in Jing Lang's arms, in her big brother's embrace. Chapter 1063. Don't cry. Don't cry. Big brother is still here. Jing Lang hugged Jing Yu tightly with all his strength. The scene in front of the gate caused the eyes of the surrounding soldiers to turn red. They turned their backs to prevent others from seeing their eyes. All of their frailty and grievances suddenly exploded at this moment. Jing Yu, who was in Jing Lang's arms, cried like a child. It caused Jing Lang's heart to ache. He wanted to love his sister with all his strength, but now she was crying so sadly in his arms. He was useless. He wasn't strong enough. He couldn't protect his sister. Jing Lang tightly tightened his arms. Jing Yu buried her head in Jing Lang's arms for a long time. Finally, she stopped crying. She sobbed slightly and didn't say anything. When the two returned to the room, Jing Yu's eyes were red and swollen from crying. Jing Lang carefully wiped the corners of Jing Yu's eyes. Looking at Jing Yu, who had cried herself to sleep in his arms, his eyes were full of tenderness. Big brother Jing. Lu Miaoqiu stood outside the door for a long time. When she finally saw Jing Lang come out, she hurriedly went up and bowed slightly. Crown Princess, there's no need to be so polite. Jing Lang nodded slightly in return. How is Yeye? Lu Miaoqiu looked worriedly at the tightly shut door behind Jing Lang and asked. She's asleep. Jing Lang pursed his lips slightly in response and said, Thank you for taking care of Jing Yu these days. Jing Lang turned to look at Xing Er, Qin Gu, and the others and said, Is there still a need for thanks between us? Qin Gu waved his hand and said, Big brother Jing, you must be tired from the journey. Go and have a good rest. Jing Yu will be fine with us guarding her. Qin Gu nodded. By the time Jing Yu woke up, it was already the morning of the next day. The moment she woke up, she saw Jing Yu bringing a bowl of porridge to her. He placed the bowl on the table and turned to look at Jing Yu with a faint smile in his eyes. You're finally willing to get up? Big brother. Jing Yu blinked. She finally realized that she wasn't dreaming yesterday. She jumped out of bed excitedly and threw herself into Jing Yu's arms. Jing Lang quickly hugged Jing Yu. His eyes were full of blame. Why are you still like this? Be careful of your body. Jing Lang hugged Jing Yu and placed Jing Yu on a chair. He raised his hand to help Jing Yu put on her shoes. Only then did Jing Lang help Jing Yu put on her shoes. When he raised his head, he saw that Jing Yu's eyes were misty. He was so shocked that he immediately became flustered. He quickly raised his hand to take out a handkerchief to wipe away Jing Yu's tears. He frowned and said, Why are you crying again? Big brother. Jing Yu choked with sobs as she looked at Jing Lang and said, Daddy is gone. Xiao Qin is gone. My child is also gone. Big brother. I only have you left. When Jing Lang heard Jing Yu's words, his heart suddenly trembled violently. He raised his hand to pull Jing Yu into his embrace and said deeply, Don't be afraid. Big brother won't go anywhere. I'll stay by your side. Big brother can't be gone anymore. Jing Yu said as she hugged Jing Lang tightly. Jing Lang nodded solemnly and said, Big brother won't be gone. Don't be afraid. When Jing Yu finally tidied herself up and came out, there was already a large group of people waiting outside. Jing Yu looked at the crowd and then went to a side room with Jing Lang to discuss what to do next. Chapter 1064. Jing Yu already had a rough idea of what happened to Jing Lang's rations. Jing Lang mentioned a few names and everyone understood. After analyzing the current situation, they began to talk about their plans. I also think that entering the Roman forest is the best way out. Jing Lang nodded in agreement when he heard Jing Yu's words. We're already making preparations. We're just waiting for some of the injured soldiers to recover before we set off. Xing Er nodded. There's no rush. We're still waiting for someone. As soon as Jing Lang finished speaking, everyone turned to look at him. Jing Yu also looked at Jing Lang with a puzzled expression. She didn't know who this person Jing Lang was talking about was. It's all thanks to this person that we were able to escape. Jing Lang pursed his lips and said, "The Tokyo Crown Prince, Xiao Yuling." "The Crown Prince? Why is he here?" Jing Yu's eyes widened in shock as she asked Jing Lang. "His Highness the Crown Prince set off earlier. As for why he came to Jinling, I'm not sure either. If my guess is correct, it should have something to do with the person in Dongqing's palace." Jing Yu pursed her lips slightly and replied, "Other than the Crown Prince, who else is there?" Jing Yu asked with a frown when she heard Jing Lang's words. "The son of Grand Scholar Fong Zicheng, is also here." Jing Lang seemed a bit helpless when he mentioned Fong Zicheng. He looked at Jing Yu and said, "Grand Scholar Fong has already retired from the court and doesn't care about politics anymore. If I'm not wrong, Fong Zicheng won't be leaving this time." "What is Fong Zicheng doing here?" Jing Yu's eyes widened as she rubbed her forehead speechlessly. "What do you plan to do next?" Jing Lang shook his head helplessly and asked Jing Yu, "Let's wait for the Crown Prince to come and clear up the situation first." Jing Yu sighed deeply. She had never expected that the Crown Prince would actually come. She had originally thought that Xiao Yuling would act as though it had nothing to do with him. Who would have thought that he couldn't help but interfere? The news of the Crown Prince's impending arrival made everyone feel a little strange. Right now, they still didn't know what Xiao Yuling's attitude was. Although she had previously teamed up with the Ninth Emperors, Xiao Yuling didn't do anything when such a big thing happened to the Ninth Emperors. And now that Xiao Yuling had appeared here, it was truly confusing. What was the meaning of Xiao Yuling's actions? Jing Yu wasn't in a hurry. She got Xing Heir to investigate Xiao Yuling's movements so that they could be prepared to welcome Xiao Yuling's arrival. What Jing Lang said was true. Xiao Yuling appeared in the vicinity of Jinling on the third day after Jing Lang returned. Hearing that Xiao Yuling had arrived in Jinling, Jing Yu naturally had to personally welcome her. Standing at the entrance of Jinling town, Jing Yu narrowed her eyes as she looked at the group of people coming from afar. Jing Yu's impression of Xiao Yuling was that of a frail and weak person. At this moment, she was wearing a luxurious robe and sitting high on a handsome horse. That movement of dismounting from the horse was so steady and handsome. A calm smile hung on his gentle cheeks. Where was the slightest bit of sickness on his ruddy face? Jing Yu's eyes flashed with surprise. Suddenly, she remembered what Xiao Chen had said. Xiao Yuling's illness wasn't something that couldn't be treated. It was something that she didn't want to treat. When Xiao Chen had said this, Jing Yu had thought about it for a long time. Chapter 1065. Now that she thought about it, that seemed to be the case. The corners of Jing Yu's mouth curled into a smile as she walked towards Xiao Yuling. Xiao Yuling seemed to have also seen Jing Yu. Her footsteps were no longer as unsteady as before. She stood in front of Jing Yu with a calm expression. "Your Highness." Jing Yu bowed slightly toward Xiao Yuling. This was not the palace and Jing Yu was not a Tokyo. She no longer cared about etiquette. She bowed slightly to Xiao Yuling out of courtesy. "Ninth Aunt, you don't have to be so polite." Xiao Yuling waved her hand slightly and looked at Jing Yu with a smile. "I didn't think that the last time we parted, it would be so long before I could see Ninth Imperial Aunt again. Your Highness is too serious. Please." Jing Yu moved to the side and welcomed Xiao Yuling into Jinling town. "Ayaya. Jing Yu, you are so biased. Why didn't you invite me in?" Fong Zicheng followed behind Xiao Yuling. When he saw the two of them singing the same tune and completely ignoring him, he immediately widened his eyes. His eyes were filled with displeasure. Yes. "Young Master Fong, please." Jing Yu rolled her eyes speechlessly. She moved to the side and invited Fong Zicheng in. Seeing Fong Zicheng's tan skin, it seemed that he had worked hard over the summer. Jing Yu and Xiao Yuling sat down in Jinling town and exchanged some pleasantries. Then, they changed the topic to the main topic. "I wonder why Your Highness has come all the way to Jinling?" Jing Yu calmly put down the teacup in her hand and lifted her eyes to look at Xiao Yuling. Her pitch-black eyes stared at Xiao Yuling with a scrutinizing look. "Ah." Xiao Yuling laughed lightly. She looked back at Jing Yu and said, "Ninth Aunt, you don't have to be so cautious. Since I saved Jing Lang, I have already made my position clear. I'm not here to harm you." Nothing is absolute in this world. Jing Yu did not care about Xiao Yuling's goodwill at all. She coldly said, "Back then Your Highness, the Crown Prince, looked on coldly from the sidelines. Now, why are you trying to be a good person?" Jing Yu's words were not polite at all. Not only did the Crown Prince lose face, but even Shangguan Hongwen and Jing Lang frowned slightly. It seemed that Jing Yu had to force the Crown Prince to make a choice. When Xiao Yuling heard Jing Yu's words, her face stiffened for a moment. However, she still lowered her eyes and said indifferently, "To be honest, Ninth Imperial Aunt, this consort is here to look for someone." When Jing Yu heard Xiao Yuling's words, she frowned and looked at Xiao Yuling in confusion. "My Crown Princess. Ninth Imperial Aunt, shouldn't you return her to this consort?" When Xiao Yuling finished speaking, Jing Yu's face suddenly turned cold. "Your Highness, as far as I know, your Crown Princess has already disappeared on the way to Luan City, right?" Jing Yu coldly turned her head away, not giving Xiao Yuling any chance to speak. Ninth Imperial Aunt. When Xiao Yuling heard Jing Yu's nonsense, her expression changed slightly. She opened her mouth to speak but was interrupted by Jing Yu. "There's no need to say any more." Jing Yu stood up and looked coldly at Xiao Yuling. "I don't care what you're here for. Come at me if you want to fight or kill me. However, don't even think about taking Miao Qiu away." Chapter 1066. Back in the Imperial City, when she was imprisoned, where were you? When she was sent to Luan City, where were you? When she almost lost her life in Luan City, you didn't care about her at all. Since that's the case, why are you looking for her now? Just treat it as if your Crown Princess is already dead. Jing Yu stood up and said, "Go back and be a good Crown Prince and marry another one." After saying this, Jing Yu turned and left. Jing Yu. When Xiao Yuling heard Jing Yu's words, her heart trembled and a trace of shock appeared in her eyes. Then, she suddenly stood up and looked at Jing Yu in shock. "What did you just say? Miao Qiu was sent to Luan City?" "Xiao Yuling, can you stop pretending?" When Jing Yu saw Xiao Yuling's expression, a trace of anger appeared in her eyes. She said, "Don't tell me that you didn't know about this at all. You're the Tokyo Crown Prince, how could you not know what happened to your Crown Princess? Do you think that anyone would believe you?" "I'm telling the truth." Xiao Yuling looked at Jing Yu with a serious expression and said, "After Miao Qiu got into trouble, I was grounded in the Eastern Palace and relied on a secret messenger to pass on information to the outside world. If what you said is true, then I'm afraid that the messenger has already been replaced." "You mean to say that after you were grounded, you relied on someone else to pass on information to the outside world?" When Jing Yu heard Xiao Yuling's words, she paused and frowned slightly. She turned to look at Xiao Yuling. Xiao Yuling nodded with a serious expression. "Now, Ning Xiangyun is the Tokyo Empress and Imperial Father listens to her in every way. The Tokyo Imperial Palace is already under her control." When Jing Yu heard Ning Xiangyuan's name, her expression turned cold. She turned to look at Xing Er. Xing Er nodded slightly. This meant that Xiao Yuling was right. Now, Ning Xiangyun was in control of the Tokyo Imperial Palace. When the Ninth Emperors lost power, how could I, as the Crown Prince, withstand Xiao Jingran's pressure? I couldn't move at all. If I had done anything to resist, Imperial Father would have issued an edict to depose me. Then, I wouldn't even have my last trump card. There is only one reason why Imperial Father hasn't issued an edict to depose me. He thinks that without the support of the Ninth Emperors, I won't be able to withstand a single blow. This is what I want. Only then can I continue to exist and scheme under his nose." When Xiao Yuling finished speaking, Jing Yu's eyes lit up. She seemed to have thought of something. She turned to look at Xiao Yuling. She finally understood why Xiao Chen had chosen the useless crown prince to be his assistant and not the outstanding second prince. Just based on Xiao Yuling's scheming and her ability to hold her temper, it was enough for her to take on a big responsibility. If Xiao Yuling was allowed to rise, it would be the time for Dongqing to change hands. Xiao Chen's foresight was indeed good. "I'll believe you for now." Jing Yu pursed her lips and said. Xiao Yuling said, "Then why is Ning Xiangyun no longer watching you? She probably thinks that I'm useless." Xiao Yuling looked at Jing Yu helplessly and shook his head with a smile. In the imperial city, I've already established an image of a coward. I don't have any real power. Why does Ning Xiangyun need to guard against me? Chapter 1067. That's true. Jingyu narrowed her eyes and replied indifferently. Jingyu, I really don't know anything about Miaoqiu. Xiao Yuling didn't even use honorifics this time. Looking at Xiao Yuling's anxious expression, Jingyu frowned slightly and said, even if you didn't know at the time, how could you not know after so long? It's forbidden to speak of anything in the palace. No one would tell me anything about the 9 emperors. If I didn't accidentally overhear Ning Xiangyuan's conversation with someone, I wouldn't even know that Miaoqiu was here. Xiao Yuling sighed deeply. They only told me that Miaoqiu Yin had made a mistake and was brought to the temple to be grounded. Miaoqiu's family also came to testify. Of course, I believed them. However, I didn't expect the reason to be like this. When I came here, I thought that Miaoqiu was here because you kidnapped her. Kidnapped? Jingyu's mouth twitched violently. She looked at Xiao Yuling speechlessly and said, where did you get such confidence? Miaoqiu is my sister. Would I kidnap her because of your daughter? Ahem. Xiao Yuling coughed lightly and replied, I was speaking nonsense. Then can I take Miaoqiu back now? Xiao Yuling paused slightly and looked up at Jingyu. Jingyu wanted to nod, but after thinking about it carefully, she felt that something was wrong. She didn't know why, but Jingyu felt that something was wrong. Why did she seem to have gotten Jingyu involved in it with just a few words? Originally, Xiao Yuling should be unforgivable. Why did she suddenly feel that Xiao Yuling's life was even more difficult than Lu Miaoqiu's after a few words of explanation? Jingyu replied without thinking. Why not? This time, it was Xiao Yuling's turn to be stunned. She clearly saw that Jingyu had agreed. Why did she refuse in the blink of an eye? The reason it's like this is because you're too useless. Jingyu immediately jumped up and pointed at Xiao Yuling's nose and scolded, you're the Tokyo Crown Prince, but you're actually in such a state. Your own wife is being bullied like this and you can't even say anything. Aren't you a coward? The entire place was silent. You want to take Miaoqiu back now? No way. When you have the ability to protect Miaoqiu, you can take her back. Jingyu said in a domineering manner. Then she left under the horrified gazes of the crowd. Gone to the fuck me? The crowd was suddenly in a mess. They silently looked at Xiao Yuling, who was standing in the same spot, stunned by the scolding. He was the crown prince of Dongqing. When had he ever been scolded like this? After the scolding, he didn't know he. Cough, cough, cough. Jingyu had left, but her brother, Jingyu, was still there. Instantly, Jing Lang started coughing. When he saw Xiao Yuling's unsure expression, he quickly said, Your Highness, have some tea, have some tea. Do you want to go see the 9 emperors? Everyone chuckled and found excuses to slip away. After Xiao Yuling rested for a while, he followed Jingyu and the others to Xiao Chen's grave. When the guards saw Xiao Yuling and the others, they bowed. Xiao Yuling stood in front of Xiao Chen's grave and looked at the clean and simple grave. His heart trembled. Chapter 1068. The 9th Emperors. Xiao Yuling stared at the blank tombstone. For a moment, she didn't know what to say. It's quiet here. Jingyu stepped forward and carefully wiped the tombstone. Then, she handed the wine cup in her hand to Xiao Yuling. After watching Xiao Yuling make a toast, she put the cup away. In terms of seniority, I call him Imperial Uncle. In terms of age, he is younger than me by 2 years. Xiao Yuling seemed to have sunk into her memories. She said faintly, when I was young, I was always unwilling to call him Imperial Uncle. Because of this, Imperial Father often scolded and beat me. The 9th Emperors, he wasn't like this in the past. Xiao Yuling raised her head slightly and looked at the blue sky. She pursed her lips and said, at that time, Xiao Chen was just like me. It's just that. I don't remember when it started, but he didn't like to smile anymore. When Jingyu heard Xiao Yuling's words, a faint smile appeared on her face. She thought back to the time when she and Xiao Chen had gone to find his wet nurse. His wet nurse had talked about Xiao Chen's childhood. Jingyu had laughed at Xiao Chen many times because of this. Xiao Qin had said that he didn't even know about her childhood. Jing Yu had replied that there would be plenty of time in the future. She would tell him slowly. But, why did you leave me before I had time to tell you? Ninth Imperial Aunt. Xiao Yuling turned to look at Jing Yu and called out, I'm very grateful to you. I'm very grateful that you were able to meet the Ninth Emperors. I can see that the Ninth Emperors really loved you. Ah. Jing Yu laughed bitterly. An indescribable bitterness spread throughout Jing Yu's chest. She lowered her head slightly and didn't say a word. The figure standing in the wind seemed to feel an indescribable sorrow as she listened to the sound of the wind. When Xiao Yuling came to Jinling, Jing Yu had thought that Xiao Yuling had run into a wall and would naturally leave. She hadn't expected Xiao Yuling to live in such a grand manner. And the most despicable thing was that Xiao Yuling had chosen to live in the place next to Lu Miaoqiu. Jing Yu was very depressed. It was all her brother's fault for saying that the crown prince could live wherever he wanted. Wasn't he living next to Lu Miaoqiu? Yeah. Lu Miaoqiu helplessly watched as Jing Yu closed the doors and windows. Her face was full of smiles. Shoo. Jing Yu turned her head and said seriously, I don't know if Xiao Yuling will climb over the wall to peek at you. You can't let him see you. Speak softly so that he doesn't hear you. Yeah, is this really okay? Lu Miaoqiu frowned as she stared at Jing Yu and asked. What's not okay about it? Jing Yu glared at Lu Miaoqiu and said, Right now, we have to make sure that he can't hear or see you. Otherwise, he won't know what it's like to lose your wife. Really? Lu Miaoqiu speechlessly touched her forehead and said, Only you would do something like this. Mph. Jing Yu didn't care and snorted. She sat on the soft couch in Lu Miaoqiu's room and blinked slightly as she looked at Lu Miaoqiu and said, But speaking of which, Xiao Yuling didn't know anything about what happened to you and even came to find you. How do you feel? How do I feel? Lu Miaoqiu calmly poured a cup of tea and took a sip. Don't play dumb. I think Xiao Yuling treats you quite well. Jing Yu sat up and blinked as she looked at Lu Miaoqiu. Chapter 1069. When Lu Miaoqiu heard Jing Yu's words, he couldn't help but laugh. He shook his head and said, Do you really think that Xiao Yuling came to find me because he was worried about me and wanted to take me back? Lu Miaoqiu's dark eyes quietly looked at Jing Yu and said with a smile, Is that not the case? When Jing Yu heard Lu Miaoqiu's words, she immediately blinked in confusion. She stared at Lu Miaoqiu with a questioning look in her eyes. Yes and no. The corners of Lu Miaoqiu's mouth curled up into a faint smile as she replied. Jing Yu looked at Lu Miaoqiu with a conflicted expression and said, Don't keep me in suspense. Hurry up and tell me. Sigh. Lu Miaoqiu sighed helplessly and said, There are two reasons why Xiao Yuling wants me to go back. First, he wants to make his cowardly image even more deeply ingrained in people's hearts. He also wants to curry favor with Ning Xiangyuan. What do you mean? Jing Yu was slightly taken aback and asked. Just think about it. This Xiao Yuling didn't help me when I was in trouble. He waited until I was safe before coming to find me. Wouldn't he be seen as a useless person in the eyes of others? Furthermore, you and I have such a close relationship. If he forcefully took me away from you, it would definitely break our relationship. I think that's what Ning Xiangyuan wants to see the most. If he creates some rumors after this matter, then our relationship will become bad. If I go back to the Tokyo, won't I become a pawn in Ning Xiangyuan's hands again? Lu Miaoqiu's dark eyes flashed with a different kind of light. This is the second reason. Lu Miaoqiu paused for a moment and then said, Xiao Yuling obviously thinks the same way. If I go back with him, wouldn't I become a great help to him? Not only will I be a better cover, but he can also use me to do things that he can't do. Tell me, wouldn't it be perfect if I went back with him at this time? Otherwise, why would he travel such a long distance to find me? Lu Miaoqiu's words were incomparably flat. The corners of her mouth curled into a faint smile. Her expression did not change at all. Hiss. Jing Yu listened to Lu Miaoqiu's analysis and thought about it carefully. Suddenly she gasped. After analyzing it this way, it seemed to be the case. His calculations were flawless. What a powerful brain. Miaoqiu, how did you know? Jingyu looked at Lu Miaoqiu with a conflicted expression and said, "What if he really just wants to find you?" "It won't happen." Lu Miaoqiu firmly shook her head and said, "He wouldn't do anything meaningless. So, if he didn't have a plan, he wouldn't have come looking for me at this time." "Jingyu, when it comes to Xiao Yuling's words, it's fine. You haven't seen how terrifying he is." The seriousness in Lu Miaoqiu's words made Jingyu's breathing stop. She didn't say anything else. She tilted her head and looked at Lu Miaoqiu's face. Her eyes were suddenly filled with sadness. They should have been a harmonious couple. But between them, there was only this incomparably cold calculation. "Jingyu, don't look at me like that." Lu Miaoqiu seemed to feel Jingyu's gaze. She sighed slightly and lowered her head. She tilted her head and looked at Jingyu and said, "This is what I've been waiting for." "Forget it." Jingyu weakly lowered her head and walked to Lu Miaoqiu's side. She sat down and said, "I've seen too many happy things. I always thought that the people around me could live like that. But now it seems everyone has their own way of living." Chapter 1070. Hee hee. Lu Miaoqiu chuckled. She looked at Jingyu and said, "Yeah, you're wrong. I'm very happy right now." I don't care." Jingyu stood up and said, "Anyway, Xiao Yuling can't see you right now. Piss him off. Make him anxious." Lu Miaoqiu smiled faintly and said, "But speaking of which, I really do want to go back to the Tokyo Imperial City with him." "What?" When Jingyu heard Lu Miaoqiu's words, her eyes widened and she said, "Miaoqiu, I don't have any power in the Imperial City. If you go back and fall into Ning Xiangyun's hands, I'm afraid." Yeah, did you forget what I just said?" Lu Miaoqiu looked up at Jingyu and said, "All of this just needs to be an act. When Ning Xiangyun finds out that we sisters have broken up, I think that not only will she not do anything to me, she will even treat me well." This. Jingyu slightly frowned when she heard this. "I can't help you guys here. If I go back to the Imperial City, maybe I can help." Lu Miaoqiu's eyes flashed as she said, "Xiao Yuling wants to scheme against me. Then why can't I use him?" Jingyu slightly fell silent. She looked at Lu Miaoqiu's bright eyes and frowned slightly. "I understand." Jingyu sighed deeply and said, "Since this is your decision, I will naturally support you. I only hope that, within the Imperial City, Xiao Yuling will be able to safely protect you this time and not get injured again." These words should be said to you. Lu Miaoqiu tightly grabbed Jingyu's hand and said, "The 9 emperors have left. They're still here." When Jingyu heard Lu Miaoqiu's words, her heart trembled. She didn't say anything for a while. The two sat in the room for a long time before Jingyu left. Lu Miaoqiu returned to her room. She looked at the cold tea and sighed. She suddenly thought of something her mother used to say. "It's not a good thing for a woman to be too smart. If she was a little stupid, she would at least be happy when she heard that Xiao Yuling was coming." However, when Lu Miaoqiu heard the news, Xiao Chen's first reaction was to analyze the current situation and Xiao Yuling's. She didn't need to think too much to guess the reason for Yuling's coming. And combined with Jing SSS recount, she confirmed was Yuling's. After confirming, there was only one thought in her mind. As expected, throughout the entire process, Lu Miaoqiu didn't feel a trace of joy. Not even a trace of joy from Xiao Yuling's arrival. She was also a woman and her heart wasn't made of stone. Every time she saw Jingyu, Xiao Chen, Shengguan Linglan and Xing Er, she felt anticipation in her heart. However, this was only a momentary fantasy. When she returned to reality, everything was just a bubble. Lu Miaoqiu's lips curved into a cold smile. She sat quietly by the table and raised her hand to pick up the teacup. She took a small sip and felt the cold tea flow down her throat. She closed her eyes and calmed her racing heart. Time passed quietly. Xiao Yuling was much calmer than Jingyu. She stayed next to Lu Miaoqiu but didn't do anything. On the other hand, the relationship between Shengguan Linglan and Xing Er was rapidly heating up. Chapter 1071. During this period of peace, Qin Bai, who everyone had been worried about, finally woke up from his long slumber. Jingyu was in the room, staring at the cowhide scroll. Suddenly, she saw Xing Er rush in and say, "Qin Bai is awake." Xing Er's words stunned Jingyu for a full 3 seconds before she jumped up from her seat. She ran towards Qin Bai's room. Cough cough. Jingyu heard a soft cough the moment she stepped into the room. She saw Qin Gu feeding Qin Bai medicine. "Qin Bai." Jingyu's eyes were filled with joy. After calling out to Qin Bai, she saw Qin Bai lift his eyes. They were no longer closed. Instead, they were open. A pair of calm, pitch-black eyes were exactly the same as before. "Jingyu?" Qin Bai looked at Jingyu, who was standing in front of the door. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly, revealing an extremely faint smile. "Qin Bai, you're finally awake." Jingyu looked at Qin Bai's familiar face. Her eyes were filled with excitement. She ran towards Qin Bai and looked at Qin Bai with joy in her eyes. She asked, "How are you? Are you all right?" Qin Bai only shook his head weakly. "Qin Gu." Jingyu frowned as she looked at Qin Gu. "He's just too weak." Qin Gu raised his hand and helped Qin Bai lie down. Then he said, "It's really miraculous." His vitality was about to be extinguished. I didn't expect him to struggle and be saved. Qin Ji's face was filled with amazement as he said this. "He's fine. He just needs to rest for a few days. He's been lying down for too long. His muscles are stiff. After some rest and massage, he'll be fine after he recovers." Qin Gu turned to look at Jingyu. Jingyu's eyes lit up with joy when she heard Qin Ji's words. "He's fine." Jingyu looked at Qin Gu with uncertainty. She wanted to confirm it again. "Ninth sister-in-law, can you not doubt my medical skills?" Qin Gu frowned unhappily. Jingyu nodded and sat down beside Qin Bai. Qin Bai opened his eyes and smiled comfortingly at Jingyu. "That's great. You're fine." Jingyu looked at Qin Bai with joy in her eyes and said, "You're finally awake? I'm fine." Qin Bai said weakly and closed his eyes again. Jingyu quickly said, "Don't talk for now. Rest well." Qin Bai's recovery was undoubtedly a joyous occasion for Jingyu. Jingyu ordered everyone to take good care of Qin Bai. Perhaps it was because of Qin Bai's recovery that Jingyu felt better. Jingyu no longer had to go to Xiao Chen's grave all day. Jingyu stayed in Qin Bai's room for the next few days. She was relieved when she saw that Qin Bai had finally recovered. "Jingyu," Lu Miaoqiu reached out and stopped Jingyu when she was about to go to Qin Bai's room. "What's wrong?" Jingyu looked at Lu Miaoqiu in confusion and asked. "Jingyu, I don't know if it's just my imagination or if I'm wrong." Lu Miaoqiu thought for a while and said to Jingyu, "I feel that Qin Bai's appearance is a bit strange. You shouldn't be so close to him. What are you thinking?" Jingyu looked at Lu Miaoqiu helplessly and said, "Qin Bai has always been saving me. If he didn't risk his life to save me this time, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to see you guys again." Chapter 1072. That may be so, but... Lu Miaoqiu frowned slightly. Just as she was about to say something, Jingyu pressed down on her shoulder. "Don't worry, I only see Qin Bai as a friend." Jingyu pursed her lips and said, "He was injured because of me. No matter what the reason is, it is only right for me to go see him and take care of him." "All right." Lu Miaoqiu looked at Jingyu and sighed deeply. She said, "Be careful." "Got it." Jingyu curved her eyebrows and smiled. Only then did she feel relieved and ran out. Lu Miaoqiu looked at Jingyu's departing figure and frowned worriedly. She lowered her head and thought for a moment. As if she had made up her mind, a cold light flashed in her eyes and she turned to enter the room. Deep into the night, Lu Miaoqiu propped up her head with her hand and held a book in her hand. She was reading a book. Her eyes were calm and her face was calm. Even though she wasn't a peerless beauty, she was still a beauty. Looking at a beauty under the light of the lamp gave off a different feeling. Creak. There was the sound of the door opening. Lu Miaoqiu, who was sitting quietly by the table, did not even raise her head. She flipped a page of the book and heard the sound of footsteps approaching. She said indifferently, "Don't freeze my flowers. Close the door." As Lu Miaoqiu's voice fell, The sound of footsteps followed. The candlelight elongated the shadow of the person approaching. Only then did Lu Miaoqiu slightly raise her eyes to look at the person approaching. Her pair of bright eyes were filled with a clear and cold light. "Crown Prince, long time no see. How have you been?" Lu Miaoqiu's eyes curved beautifully as she spoke to Xiao Yuling, who was dressed in luxurious clothes. "Long time no see. Crown Princess, you are still so beautiful." Xiao Yuling's eyes also curved slightly. However, there was not the slightest hint of a smile in the eyes of these two people. Both of them were cold and indifferent. "I thought the Crown Prince would be able to sit for a few more days. But can't wait?" Lu Miaoqiu put down the book in her hands and looked up at Xiao Yuling. As the saying goes, a day apart is like 3 years. "How long has it been since I last saw you?" Xiao Yuling's lips curved slightly. That fierce aura was completely different from the Xiao Yuling that Jingyu had seen before. If Xiao Jingran saw Xiao Yuling's current appearance, he would definitely not think that his elder brother was a sickly and useless person. Just based on his aura and his pair of eyes that could see through everything, he was definitely not simple. Lu Miaoqiu snorted disdainfully. She stood up and walked to the side of the bed. She looked at the orchid on the windowsill and narrowed her eyes. "I know why you are here. Don't worry. I will go back to the Tokyo with you." Xiao Yuling looked at Lu Miaoqiu's back. When she heard Lu Miaoqiu's words, there was no joy in her eyes. Instead, she frowned slightly. "You have your reasons. I also have my reasons. As long as you are willing to cooperate with me, I will naturally go back with you." Lu Miaoqiu turned her body to the side and a faint smile appeared on her face as she calmly looked at Xiao Yuling and said, "You think I came to find you because I need you?" Xiao Yuling finally understood the meaning in Lu Miaoqiu's words. She frowned slightly and said, "Can't I come to find you because you are my wife?" Chapter 1073. Ah! When Lu Miaoqiu heard Xiao Yuling's words, it was as if she had heard something funny. Her lips curled into a cold smile as she said, "Xiao Yuling, do you believe your own words?" "Do?" Xiao Yuling's eyes flashed with anger. "What? Are you regretting marrying me now?" Lu Miaoqiu seemed to be very happy as she curled the corners of her lips and said, "You already knew that I married you to use you, to obtain the status of Crown Princess. After knowing this, you still married me. Actually, from the start, I was just a chess piece in your hands." Lu Miaoqiu turned around and said to Xiao Yuling, "From the start, our relationship was confirmed. You don't have to say such insignificant words." "Lu Miaoqiu." Xiao Yuling approached Lu Miaoqiu step by step. His pitch-black eyes flashed with anger as he stared at Lu Miaoqiu and said fiercely, "You woman, do you even have a heart?" Lu Miaoqiu looked at the angry Xiao Yuling and was confused. Did she say something wrong? "Good, very good." Xiao Yuling took a deep breath and straightened his body. He said, "You are smart. Since you know my goal, then tell me yours." "My goal is very simple." Lu Miaoqiu looked at Xiao Yuling, who had returned to normal. She pursed her lips and said, "Ning Xiangyu must die and Jingyu must be protected. That is all." When Lu Miaoqiu finished speaking, Xiao Yuling frowned slightly. Clearly, he had thought of this long ago. "Okay, but I also have a request." Xiao Yuling narrowed her eyes and looked at Lu Miaoqiu. "If you want Jingyu to live peacefully, you must listen to me when we return to the Imperial City. Don't worry." Lu Miaoqiu's eyes were calm as a mocking smile appeared on her face. "The Tokyo's throne will be yours sooner or later." Xiao Yuling laughed softly, her eyes filled with coldness. "Since we've reached an agreement, it's getting late. Your Highness, please return." Lu Miaoqiu calmly turned around and walked towards the inner room. She calmly opened her mouth and said, "If someone finds out that your Highness has barged in late at night and tells Jingyu, you might not be able to leave for a period of time." When Xiao Yuling heard Lu Miaoqiu's words, his expression turned ugly for a moment. However, he waved his sleeves and turned to leave. The anger in his heart could not dissipate. When Lu Miaoqiu heard the footsteps leave, the faint smile on her face slowly disappeared. She quietly sat on the bed. After a deep sigh, she closed her eyes and fell asleep. On the other side, Xiao Yuling walked out and stood outside the door as he watched the lights in Lu Miaoqiu's room go out. His hands, which were hanging by his side, unconsciously clenched. He coldly turned and left, stepping into his own courtyard. "Your Highness." When Xiao Yuling's servant saw Xiao Yuling return, he hurriedly went forward to welcome him. Xiao Yuling responded and allowed the servant to remove his outer robe. His lips were slightly pursed. One look and one could tell that he was unhappy. "The crown princess has angered you again?" The servant had served Xiao Yuling for many years. When he saw Xiao Yuling's expression, he knew that Xiao Yuling was unhappy. Ever since the crown princess had entered, this expression had appeared more and more frequently on the crown prince's face. Chapter 1074. When Xiao Yuling heard the attendant's question, he didn't say anything but his brows furrowed. When the attendant saw Xiao Yuling's expression, he knew that he must have guessed correctly. "Sigh, Your Highness, the crown princess has suffered such a great grievance and needs you to coax her. If you say something nice, the crown princess won't make you angry. She'll probably be touched." When the attendant finished speaking, Xiao Yuling's brows furrowed even deeper. The attendant saw that Xiao Yuling did not stop him from speaking and did not appear angry. Only then did he relax and continue to speak. "If this servant did not guess wrongly, Your Highness, the moment you entered, you were just coldly saying some polite words, right?" Xiao Yuling thought for a moment. It seemed like he really did say that. However, it was Lu Miaoqiu who said it first. "It's not that I want to criticize you, but if you speak softly to the crown princess, will she still choke you?" The attendant spoke again. "Women are amenable to coaxing but not coercion. The more you oppose her, the more you won't be able to gain anything." Xiao Yuling said in a strange tone, "I can't tell that she's a soft-hearted person." "Crown Prince, this is your fault." The attendant took off Xiao Yuling's outer robes and placed it on the screen. He said, "I saw that the crown princess is amiable to outsiders. Why is she so cold to you? Crown Prince, you must have done something wrong." "I'm the crown prince. Do I have to curry favor with that woman?" Xiao Yuling's expression instantly turned cold. I'm stupid." When the attendant saw that Xiao Yuling was angry, he hurriedly stopped talking and slapped his own mouth. "Mph." Xiao Yuling snorted coldly, turned around and walked into the inner room. The servant hurriedly bowed and left. Xiao Yuling lay on the bed and thought carefully about what the servant had just said. Could it be that it was because of her? Lu Miaoqiu was right. Xiao Yuling had come to find Lu Miaoqiu with a purpose. However, he didn't need to come personally. He could have just sent someone to pass the message. With Lu Miaoqiu's intelligence, she would definitely know what Xiao Yuling meant. Xiao Yuling had thought of all the requests that Lu Miaoqiu would make. Sure enough, it was the case. However, for some unknown reason, after much consideration, Xiao Yuling still decided to personally come to Jinling. As the journey gradually approached, he actually wondered what Lu Miaoqiu's expression would be when she heard and saw that he had personally come to pick her up. That moment of longing caught Xiao Yuling off guard. The more Xiao Yuling wanted to suppress it, the more he would think about it. With this strange thought in mind, when he arrived at Jinling and stayed next to Lu Miaoqiu's courtyard, the feeling became even stronger. He would actually be in a daze, sitting in the courtyard, but his thoughts would run to the courtyard next door. Occasionally, he would hear Lu Miaoqiu's voice and his heart would suddenly beat irregularly. In the eyes of the servants and outsiders, Xiao Yuling was incomparably calm. However, only he knew the change in his heart. That irregular heartbeat made Xiao Yuling feel uneasy. That was why he met Lu Miaoqiu tonight. When he was in front of the door, Xiao Yuling hesitated for a long time. However, Xiao Yuling still went in. His originally fiery mood, when he met Lu Miaoqiu, was like a bucket of cold water had been poured over him. It instantly disappeared. Chapter 1075. Xiao Yuling lay on the bed and frowned when she thought of Lu Miaoqiu's cold eyes. Finally, she turned over and closed her eyes. Qin Bai's body had recovered very well. He was able to get out of bed and walk around in the past few days. Xiao Yuling and Lu Miaoqiu were finally preparing to go back. In order to make this matter more realistic, Jingyu and Lu Miaoqiu had discussed it. They wanted to put on a show so that everyone would think that Jingyu and Lu Miaoqiu had broken up. Early in the morning, Jingyu and Lu Miaoqiu had a huge argument in front of the courtyard. Lu Miaoqiu said angrily, "I'm doing this for your own good. You don't have to care about my matters." Jingyu seemed to be quite angry as she replied coldly, "But I don't care. I'm leaving. In the future, whether Jingyu lives or dies, it has nothing to do with me." Lu Miaoqiu threw out these words as if she was extremely sad. Then, she turned and returned to the courtyard. Jingyu also left. The people standing outside looked at the two of them in confusion. Qin Bai listened to the commotion outside and frowned in confusion. Why was there such a huge commotion outside today? A page boy just happened to walk in from outside. Qin Bai quickly asked, "What's going on outside? Why do I hear the sound of an argument?" Qin Bai frowned slightly as he looked at the page boy. "Sigh. The crown princess and the 9th imperial concubine are arguing. I heard that it's a fierce argument." The page boy pursed his lips slightly as he replied, "Isn't the crown princess and the 9th imperial concubine on very good terms? Why would they be arguing?" When Qin Bai heard the servant's answer, he was shocked. He frowned and asked with confusion, "What are you talking about?" "I don't know either." The manservant shook his head in confusion and said, "I only know that they quarreled and the crown princess left with the crown prince." "Gone?" Qin Bai frowned. It seemed that the quarrel was more serious than he had imagined. Qin Bai fell into deep thought. Not long after, Jingyu walked into Qin Bai's room with a gloomy face. When she saw Qin Bai, she forced a smile and said, "How do you feel today?" "Jingyu, you're here." Qin Bai nodded slightly and said, "It feels good. What happened outside just now?" "It's nothing." Jingyu was happy when she heard Qin Bai say that it was good. However, when she heard Qin Bai ask about what happened just now, her face turned ugly and she turned her head away slightly. "Jingyu?" Qin Bai raised his hand and placed it on the back of Jingyu's hand. Jingyu was stunned and looked up at Qin Bai. Her eyes met with Qin Bai's dark and deep eyes. The expression in his eyes stunned Jingyu. "If there's anything, you can tell me." Qin Bai looked at Jingyu seriously. Jingyu silently pulled her hand back and coughed. "It's nothing. I just didn't get along with Lu Miaoqiu for a long time. This time, she said that you weren't a good person and wanted me to stay away from you. I couldn't win against her and ended up like this. Because of me." Qin Bai was stunned when he heard Jingyu's words. He immediately calmed down and said helplessly, "Did I do something that made the crown princess unhappy?" "It's none of your business. She kept finding fault with you." Jingyu was clearly very angry and turned her head away as if she didn't want to say anything else. Chapter 1076. When Qin Bai saw Jingyu like this, he naturally didn't say anything. He only frowned slightly. Before this, he had sensed that Lu Miaoqiu was somewhat guarded against him. He didn't expect the two of them to quarrel because of this. It was good to think about it this way. When Jingyu couldn't see, Qin Bai lowered his head slightly. He raised his hand and took a sip of the water on the table. Lu Miaoqiu's departure saved him a lot of trouble. "Qin Bai? What are you thinking about?" After calling Qin Bai for a long time, Qin Bai didn't respond. She frowned slightly and called out again. "Nothing." Qin Bai looked at Jingyu with some self-blame and said, "I was just thinking about what I did wrong to cause you sisters to fall out. I feel very apologetic. I already said that it has nothing to do with you." When Jingyu saw Qin Bai's self-blaming expression, she felt a little anxious. However, she couldn't tell him that this was all an act, so she could only say this again. "The crown princess really left?" Qin Bai frowned slightly as he looked at Jingyu. Jingyu lowered her head and said, "If she wants to leave, then so be it. Now that we are in such a difficult situation, I didn't expect her to leave because of this." Jingyu was clearly very angry with Lu Miaoqiu. Her words were filled with deep displeasure. "Jingyu." Qin Bai sighed helplessly. He seemed to want to persuade her, but Qin Bai didn't say anything in the end. The news of the crown princess and the 9th imperial concubine falling out instantly spread throughout Jinling town. Everyone knew about it, especially when they found out that the crown princess had really left with the crown prince. Only then did they realize the seriousness of this matter. Looking at the way the two of them were acting, it was as if they had become enemies. The crown prince's carriage left Jinling and traveled a long distance. Lu Miaoqiu sat in the carriage, and only then did she dare to lift the small curtain and look at the city gates of Jinling. Her eyes were full of longing. "Since you're so reluctant, why do you have to act so heartless?" Xiao Yuling was also seated in the carriage. When she saw Lu Miaoqiu's expression, she narrowed her eyes and asked coldly. When Lu Miaoqiu heard Xiao Yuling's words, she turned her eyes to look at Xiao Yuling. Then she slowly lowered the curtain in her hand. Jinling town was finally out of sight. Lu Miaoqiu could only swallow the reluctance in her heart. "Isn't this the effect that your highness has always wanted?" Lu Miaoqiu lowered her head slightly and replied indifferently. "Ta." Xiao Yuling laughed softly and said, "If you wanted to achieve this effect, all you had to do was spread a few rumors. Why would you need to put on such a show? If I'm not wrong, you're doing this for another reason, right?" As Xiao Yuling spoke, her pitch-black eyes narrowed slightly. She looked at Lu Miaoqiu with a gaze full of scrutiny. "Your highness is overthinking." Lu Miaoqiu lowered her head indifferently. She played with her sleeve and looked on coldly. "Let me guess." Xiao Yuling ignored Lu Miaoqiu's expression and said, "I think you must be close to Qinbai because of the 9th imperial concubine? Or, you've noticed that Qinbai is different? So you want to use this opportunity to give Qinbai a chance? I see that you're so wary of Qinbai. Could it be that you want to put on this show for Qinbai?" As Xiao Yuling's words fell, the expression in Lu Miaoqiu's eyes finally changed. A cold light flashed in her eyes. Chapter 1077. A man who is too smart is indeed not likable. Lu Miaoqiu leisurely glanced at Xiao Yuling. The calmness in her eyes caused Xiao Yuling's breathing to stagnate. He had thought that he would be able to see the change in this woman's expression after he revealed her plan. However, he did not expect to receive such a reply. Instantly, Xiao Yuling's expression turned ugly. Just as he was about to say something, he saw that Lu Miaoqiu did not care about him at all. She just lay down on the soft couch in the carriage and closed her eyes. Xiao Yuling suppressed the anger in his heart. He could neither spit it out nor swallow it. In the end, he just stared darkly at Lu Miaoqiu. He did not know if it was because the sun was too bright or because the carriage was shaking too much, but Xiao Yuling stared at Lu Miaoqiu in a daze. The woman in plain clothes was lying on her side on the soft couch with a calm expression. She was surrounded by an aura of indifference. It was as if nothing could shake her heart. Regardless of whether it was a person or a matter, she was always scheming. Now that he thought about it, it was somewhat laughable. Xiao Yuling narrowed his eyes. Lu Miaoqiu was right. When Lu Miaoqiu had wanted to get close to him, Xiao Yuling had sensed it. However, after knowing everything about her, he had still married this woman. She was a scheming woman, but it was a pity all of this woman's schemes were not used on him. Xiao Yuling leaned against the wall of the carriage and looked calmly at Lu Miaoqiu. The light in his eyes and the emotions in his eyes were something that no one else could understand. Lu Miaoqiu had left with Xiao Yuling and Qinbai had finally recovered. The soldiers were running low on rations and the matter of moving was imminent. In this forest, besides Jingyu, who was the most familiar with the roads, the Mahist cavalry was the only one left. In order to evacuate everyone as soon as possible, Jingyu recalled the Mahist cavalry to be their guides. "Xing Heir, we need to spread out the soldiers for this migration," Jingyu said with a frown as she looked at the map in front of her. "Okay." Xing Heir nodded slightly. "I don't know if what I want can be realized, but how will I know if I don't try?" Jingyu straightened her back and looked at the people sitting in the room. Qin Gu, Fang Zicheng, Shengguan Hongwen, Yuan Mingyuan, and the others were all present. "I hope you can help me." Jingyu looked around at the crowd and said, "This time's silence will be our final trump card. If we lose, only death awaits us. If we win, it will be the time for us to take back everything." "Okay." Everyone nodded in agreement. Li Weiming, you 5 team leaders, follow General Shangguan and Yuan Mingyuan to organize the troops. Divide everyone into 5 groups and bring them to 5 different locations. Each location can't be too close to each other, but it can't be too far away. Jing Yu said with a frown as she gathered everyone in front of her. Okay. Li Weiming and the others nodded in agreement. These 5 locations, you go here. Jing Yu marked out the 5 locations on the map and pointed them out one by one for Li Weiming and the others to see. Then she turned to look at Li Weiming and asked, Got it? Got it, boss, don't worry. Li Weiming and the others nodded in agreement. Now that they were in the Roman forest, there was no one they were more familiar with. They were used to hiding in the forest and knew every place by heart. Chapter 1078. Very good. Go and prepare yourselves. Jing Yu nodded. The commotion inside Jinling Town sounded like a huge commotion, but to an outsider, Jinling Town looked exactly the same as usual. The scout outside saw that the guards at the gate hadn't changed at all. Only then did he feel at ease and go back to report. The troops stationed outside Jinling Town were naturally the troops of the Tokyo and Nanli. Ever since the northern pastoral troops left, the Cebu had retreated to a place far away from the Tokyo. The Tokyo and Nanli were together. Among the troops of the 2 countries, there were also people from the Holy Family and the Poison Sect. It was obvious that these 4 sides were still in an alliance. But whether this was a real alliance or not was unknown. What? A cold voice rang out. There were quite a lot of people sitting in the tent. Everyone here was familiar to Jing Yu. Jing Yu and the others still haven't made any moves? The person who spoke was dressed in red and was sitting on a seat on the side. It was Nailin Yu. She had an extremely charming face. How could anyone mistake her for someone else? Hee, could it be that Jing Yu still has provisions? Yun Tian narrowed his eyes and said coldly, Their provisions have all been stolen. If I'm not wrong, they won't be able to last more than a few days. Are you sure you're not mistaken? Xiao Jingran, who was sitting on the other side, frowned slightly as he looked at the guard who came to pass the message. This little one is certain. The person kneeling on the ground said seriously, This little one is certain. There's still smoke in Jinling Town and the number of guards hasn't increased. They definitely haven't made any moves. That's strange. Yun Tian narrowed his eyes and smiled faintly. Could it be that the other pupil can produce food? Oh no. 3rd Elder, has there been any news from the Holy Family? As Yun Tian spoke, he paused for a moment. His eyes turned towards the gray-haired old man who was sitting at the head of the table. He was dressed in a gray robe. He sat firmly in his seat without moving at all. When the old man heard Yun Tian's words, his slightly squinted eyes slowly opened. His eyes were filled with a sharp aura. Even though the old man was very old, his aura was extremely shocking. Young Master Yun, do you think this old man didn't report? The old man stared at Yun Tian as he slowly opened his mouth. The words that came out of his mouth were hoarse, but there was an extremely heavy killing intent hidden in his calm voice. I wouldn't dare. Yun Tian could clearly feel the old man's murderous intent and his expression changed slightly. Everyone says that the Holy Family's 3rd Elder Jie is an expert in the Qi arts of the Holy Family. Seeing you today is indeed extraordinary. Nailin Yu's expression turned ugly when she saw the poison sex people being suppressed. Her lips curled up slightly as she spoke. Haha. The sacred race's 3rd Elder, Jie, indifferently looked at Nailin Yu when he heard her words. His eyes were filled with disgust and ridicule as he said, Everyone says that the poison sex 3rd Miss, Nailin Yu, practices the art of seduction and has unparalleled charm. Seeing it today, it is indeed extraordinary. Chapter 1079. It was the same sentence and the same answer, but it caused Nailin Yu's expression to change greatly. The art of seduction was the most vicious thing in the poison sect. No woman would be willing to practice it because when they practiced it, they had to use a man as a medium. Nailin Yu was able to practice the art of seduction to such a level. It was easy to imagine how many men she had intercourse with. When these mocking words were spat out, let alone Nailinue, even Yun Tian and Yun Jing couldn't keep their faces straight. Mu Qinghua and Xiao Jingran, who were on the side, suddenly had an enlightened expression. No wonder Nailinue always had a kind of seduction when she looked at her. So it was because of this reason. However, when they thought about how this woman practiced it, they suddenly felt nauseous. What was the difference between this woman and the women in the brothels? Mu Qinghua and Xiao Jingran looked at Nailinue with a different expression. Nailinue clearly felt this change and her expression became more and more ugly. She couldn't stay in this room for even half a minute longer and suddenly got up to leave. Jie looked at Nailinue's back as she left. His eyes were filled with ridicule. A small little girl wanted to fight with him? She was asking for trouble. Third elder, aren't you being a bit too much of a bully? Yun Tian fiercely clenched his fist as he stared at Jie. This old man only said a few words. I didn't make a move. Jie calmly replied, if I had made a move, then it wouldn't have been as simple as bullying. After Jie finished speaking, he silently stood up. His pair of cloudy eyes stared at Yun Tian and said, if there's nothing else, this old man will go back and rest. This old man really can't sit still. After speaking, Jie didn't care about Yun Tian's expression and walked forward with trembling steps. Jing Yu would naturally recognize the person standing behind Jie if she was here. Wasn't that woman in tight black clothes the one who followed Qin Bai back then? When Jing Yu had saved Qin Bai, this woman had been by Qin Bai's side. Her name was Lingji. Third elder. Lingji's face was ice cold. She didn't reveal any emotions from head to toe. She tilted her head and frowned slightly as she looked at Jie. Then she raised her hand and helped Jie out of the tent. What news do you have? Jie's eyes narrowed slightly as she looked sideways at Lingji and asked. No news. Lingji frowned and shook her head slowly. When Jie heard Lingji's words, he also frowned and sighed deeply. He did not say anything and walked forward silently. Jing Yu had no way of knowing what was happening in this tent. If Jing Yu saw this woman, she would think of many things, but Jing Yu didn't see it. In Jinling town, batch after batch of people left. The soldiers guarding the platform were still there, but the people in Jinling town had already left. It took 3 full days for the goods to be transported and the people to be evacuated. Only then was the evacuation almost complete. Jing Yu was the last to leave. On the night of the 3rd day, all the people and goods in Jinling town had been evacuated. Only Jing Yu and Jing Lang were left. They gathered the last of the soldiers guarding the town and headed towards the Roman forest. Chapter 1080. Let's go. Standing at the entrance of the Roman forest, they could see the full view of Jinling town. The originally peaceful town had been baptized by the flames of war and now looked bleak. Jing Yu looked up slightly at Jinling town, then turned to look at the crowd. Let's go. Everyone turned their horses around and galloped into the Roman forest without looking back, completely entering this incomparably vast forest. Now Jing Yu's group was like fish in the sea. Because of the defeat, their number was quite small. If there were more people, it would be more troublesome to find them in the forest. Now, with so few people, they had all entered the forest and were scattered in the depths of the forest. Even the Four-Nation Alliance did not dare to enter the forest easily. They did not have Jing Yu's ability. Recklessly barging in, if one were to barge into a wolf's den, one would definitely be eaten until not even bones were left. This was the Roman forest, not some plain. Entering the territory of wild beasts, wouldn't one be slaughtered? The person who was monitoring the situation was outside Jinling town as usual. But today, he waited for a long time and did not see anyone appear on the city wall. Only the flag was fluttering and he could vaguely see the smoke rising from the town. It looked like someone was cooking, but why didn't anyone come out to stand guard? Was there a new movement? The person who was monitoring the situation suddenly looked serious. He narrowed his eyes and continued to stare at the city wall. He watched as the smoke became thinner and thinner. Finally, it dissipated in the wind, but there was still no one on the city wall. This is bad. This person waited for a long time. When he finally seemed to have sensed something, it was already noon when he went back to report. The people of Tokyo and Nanli were shocked when they heard the report. What did you say? There's no one? Mu Qinghua almost jumped up. They had been guarding the entrance of the cave for more than half a month, but the people inside had disappeared without them noticing? Yes, I clearly saw the smoke rising from the city, but I didn't see anyone. The soldier who came to report was about to cry. Trash. A bunch of trash. Mu Qinghua's eyes were filled with viciousness. She stood up and kicked the soldier. She roared angrily, "What are you standing there for? Go and gather the troops. Kill your way in." This time, Jing Yu had completely fooled these people. When the soldiers of Tokyo and Nanli rushed to the entrance of Jinling Town, there was still no movement in Jinling Town. In this situation, if they still did not know what was going on, they would be finished. The gate of Jinling Town was easily pushed open. The town was barren, and there was not a single trace of a person in sight. Where is everyone? Xiao Jingran had a gloomy expression on his face as he looked at the empty Jinling Town and spoke viciously. What are you doing? Don't know. The soldier who was in charge of monitoring the situation knelt down. This queen asked you to keep a close eye on Jinling Town. Is this how you do it? You let someone escape from under your eyes? I think you guys don't want your eyes anymore. Mu Qinghua's eyes were filled with viciousness as she said, "Come on. Dig out the eyes of all these trash for me." Chapter 1081. Prince Mu, why are you so angry? Just as the soldiers were crying and begging for mercy, a calm voice sounded from the crowd. That hoarse and old voice, who else could it be but Jie? I just received the news. Jie Yi was wearing a gray robe as he stood in the middle of the crowd. He looked like an ordinary old man. The people around him were all wearing luxurious clothes, but this old man couldn't be ignored. The girl with different pupils escaped into the Roman forest. That's why she wasn't discovered by the people outside. Jie Yi's calm voice sounded. Mu Qinghua and Xiao Jingran both frowned. Roman forest? Xiao Jingran said as he looked up. The only thing that could be seen was the tall mountains outside of Jinling Town. That stretch of tall mountains, no one knew how vast the forest was. That's right, they moved into the Roman forest. Jie Yi slowly nodded and said, Now. It will be difficult to catch the girl with different pupils. Third Elder, what do you plan to do? Yun Tian turned to look at Jie Yi and said, Right now, the greatest advantage lies with your sacred race, right? Huh. Jie Yi laughed and turned to walk out of the town. He said indifferently, The time isn't right, don't make a move. This old fart. Naylan Moon looked at Jie Yi who didn't care and left arrogantly in front of everyone. But now, no one could do anything to Jie. Now that things had developed to this stage, it was as Yun Tian had said. The sacred race had the greatest advantage and they needed to discuss what to do next. Xiao Jingran and Mu Qinghua's group didn't catch anything. They all returned to the camp with unfriendly expressions. What they didn't see was that on their way back, behind a tree, a small black figure slowly appeared. She was dressed in black and was very petite. She carried a longbow on her back. Beside her feet was a gray wolf head. Clearly, this person was Jing Yu who had entered the forest. At this moment, she was standing behind a tree and watching Xiao Jingran's group leave with her own eyes. Shoo! Jing Yu rubbed Yinfeng's head and narrowed her eyes as she watched the group leave. Why do I feel like I saw a familiar person? Jing Yu frowned slightly as she looked in the direction that Yun Tian's group had left. Although they were blocked by many things and heads, Jing Yu seemed to vaguely see a familiar figure when she looked over. It seems like... But Jing Yu couldn't remember who it was and could only helplessly shake her head. The Holy Family's third elder. Jing Yu's lips curled into a mocking smile. How interesting. The Holy Family's sixth elder had been abolished and replaced with the third elder? His position was high, but she didn't know if his level of disgust was high. Jing Yu slowly turned sideways and her figure once again hid in the forest. She threw out the rope in her hand and hung it on a thick tree branch. Jing Yu jumped up and leaped forward in the forest. Yin Feng dashed through the forest. His vigorous steps chased after Jing Yu's figure like a silver wind blowing through the forest. Chapter 1082. Nothing different happened in the forest because of the arrival of Jing Yu's group. On the contrary, after entering the forest, Jing Yu seemed to have returned to her parents' embrace. She leaped freely in the forest as if she had returned to her parents' arms. "Boss." Jing Yu jumped down from the tree trunk and panted slightly. Her breathing was a little uneven. She hadn't run like this in a long time, so she felt weak. "How is it? Has everything been arranged?" Jing Yu asked as she pulled back the rope while panting heavily. "Everything has been arranged. The soldiers have started to build houses according to the blueprints you gave them. They are hidden in the depths of the forest." Li Weiming, who was leading a group of people, quickly replied when he heard Jing Yu's question. "That's good." Jing Yu nodded and said, "Do you remember what I told you yesterday? Zhan Qi, Li Chong, each of you will lead your men to the periphery of the forest. As long as you think the path is passable, no matter how big or small it is, set up traps. You can use the tricks I taught you. After setting up the first line of defense, you will have to rely on yourselves for the next step." Jing Yu looked at the 5 captains and said, "Bring out your special skills from the black soil region." But everyone's eyes lit up when they heard this. They all rubbed their palms together and spread out in the 5 directions that Jing Yu had mentioned. In this forest, if one didn't have a black qilin as a mount, they wouldn't be able to walk on horses. It would be even more difficult to walk on foot. It was also unknown what kind of ferocious beasts they would encounter. Jing Yu had specially scouted out the terrain when she set up the traps. If one were to walk in a certain direction, one's subconscious would definitely choose that path. Jing Yu had set up the traps under such circumstances and was just waiting for one to step into them. In the depths of the forest, a group of soldiers were all building wooden houses. Almost all of the houses were covered with vines. From afar, it was almost impossible to see that they were houses. One would think that they were rocks covered with vines. Every time Jing Yu and the others went out, they would only come back at night. After going back and forth for many days, they saw that the construction of the house was almost complete. In order to ensure that there was someone watching over every place, Jing Yu and Jing Lang had no choice but to separate. Shangguan Linglan and Xing Er were in charge of one place, Yuan Mingyuan was in charge of another place, Jing Lang was in charge of another place, and General Shangguan was in charge of another place. Jing Yu, Qin Bai, and Qin Gu were all in charge of one place. Jing Yu would sometimes run around. Because the black qilin was able to move around more conveniently, it became the messenger of the 5 places and traveled around these places. After everyone had settled down, Jing Yu could finally do what she had always wanted to do. "Qin Bai, are you feeling better today?" As usual, Jing Yu entered Qin Bai's house early in the morning and asked Qin Bai, who was standing in the wooden house. "Sigh. This young master put in so much effort to take care of you, but I didn't even receive a greeting." Qin Gu said sourly when he saw that Jing Yu walked in and asked about Qin Bai. Jing Yu calmly crossed her arms and glared at Qin Gu. "Who was the one who ate my barbecue last night and said you were welcome?" Nothing different happened in the forest because of the arrival of Jing Yu's group. On the contrary, after entering the forest, Jing Yu seemed to have returned to her parents' embrace. She leaped freely in the forest as if she had returned to her parents' arms. But Jing Yu jumped down from the tree trunk and panted slightly. Her breathing was a little uneven. She hadn't run like this in a long time, and she was feeling weak. "How is it? Is everything arranged?" Jing Yu asked as she took back the rope and panted. "Everything has been arranged. The soldiers have started to build houses according to the blueprints you gave them. They are hidden in the depths of the forest." Li Weiming, who was leading a group of people, quickly replied when he heard Jing Yu's question. "That's good." Jing Yu nodded and said, "Do you remember what I told you yesterday? Zhan Qi, Li Chong, each of you lead your men to the periphery of the forest. As long as you think the path is passable, no matter how big or small it is, set up traps. You can use the tricks I taught you. After setting up the first line of defense, you will have to deal with the things in front of you." Jing Yu looked at the 5 captains and said, Bring out your special skills from the black soil region. Everyone's eyes lit up when they heard this. They all rubbed their palms and spread out in the 5 directions that Jingyu had pointed out. In this forest, if one didn't have a black qilin as a mount, they wouldn't be able to walk on horses. It would be even more difficult to walk on foot. It was also unknown what kind of ferocious beasts they would encounter. Jingyu had specially scouted out the terrain when she set up the traps. If one were to walk in a certain direction, one would subconsciously choose to walk in that direction. Jingyu had set up the traps under such circumstances and was waiting for one to step into them. In the depths of the forest, a group of soldiers were all building wooden houses. Almost all of the houses were covered with vines. From afar, it was almost impossible to see that they were houses. One would think that they were rocks covered with vines. Every time Jingyu and the others went out, they would only come back at night. After going back and forth for many days, they saw that the construction of the house was almost completed. In order to ensure that there were people watching over every place, Jingyu and Jinglang had no choice but to separate. Shangguan Linglong and Xing Er watched over one place, Yuan Mingyuan watched over another place, Jinglang watched over another place, and General Shangguan watched over another place. Jingyu, Qin Bai, and Qin Gu were all in one place. After the 5 places were split up, Jingyu would sometimes run around. Because the black qilin was more convenient to move around, it became the messenger of the 5 places and traveled around them. After everyone had settled down, Jingyu could finally do what she had always wanted to do. Qin Bai, are you feeling better today? As usual, Jingyu entered Qin Bai's house early in the morning and asked Qin Bai, who was standing in the wooden house. Sigh, this young master put in so much effort to take care of you, but I didn't even receive a greeting. Qin Gu said sourly when he saw that Jingyu walked in and asked about Qin Bai. Jingyu calmly crossed her arms and glared at Qin Gu. Who was the one who ate this young lady's barbecue last night and said you were welcome? Chapter 1083. When Qin Gu heard Jingyu's words, he made a simple sound. He swallowed his saliva and said, I'll go see if the medicine is ready. With that, Qin Gu dashed out. This guy deserves a beating, Jingyu cursed before turning to look at Qin Bai. You have a good relationship with Qin Gu, Qin Bai said as he looked at Jingyu with his clear eyes. What good relationship? Jingyu sighed helplessly. She looked up at Qin Bai and said, You seem to be recovering well. Does your wound still hurt? If the wound doesn't heal after so long, wouldn't it ruin the reputation of Miracle Medical Valley? Qin Bai smiled helplessly. He raised his arm and said, I'm fine now. It's been so long. I've wanted to go out for a walk. Looking at your outfit, are you going out? Jingyu nodded. Then she seemed to have thought of something. She looked at Qin Bai in surprise and said, Qin Bai, you're from the Holy Family, right? I am. When Qin Bai heard Jingyu's sudden question, he clenched his fist and asked, What's wrong? I have a sentence here. Take a look and see what it means. Jingyu said as she took out a piece of paper from her bosom. The words on the paper were copied down by Qin Gu for Jingyu. The 2 sentences written on the paper were the words on the cowhide. Taming beasts as kings can contain the world. This is... Qin Bai took it in confusion. When he saw the words, his expression froze for a moment. Jingyu saw the change in Qin Bai's expression. She was delighted. Judging from Qin Bai's expression, he seemed to know. You've seen it before? Jingyu looked at Qin Bai excitedly and asked, Do you know what it means? I've seen it before. Qin Bai seemed to use a lot of strength to suppress the shock in his heart. He pursed his lips and said, I've seen it in the Holy Family's sacrificial hall, but I don't know what it means. Don't know what it means? When Jingyu heard Qin Bai say that he had seen it before, she was very excited. However, when she heard that he didn't know what it meant, the smile on Jingyu's face froze. I don't know. Qin Bai shook his head in confusion. He looked at Jingyu and asked, What's wrong? What is it? Where did you get it? I picked it up. When Jingyu heard Qin Bai say that he didn't know, she immediately lost interest. She lowered her head helplessly and stopped talking. Qin Bai looked at Jingyu and pursed his lips. He didn't say anything either. I'm going out. Jingyu stood up and said, I'll go with you. Qinbai saw Jingyu stand up and quickly said. Jingyu immediately sat up. She frowned and looked at Qinbai. You haven't fully recovered yet. Don't walk around. My body is fine now. Qinbai stood up and moved his body. He said firmly, I've been lying in bed for a long time. If I don't walk around, I won't be able to walk anymore. It's not that serious. Jingyu looked at Qinbai helplessly and said, I'll ask Qinggu. If he says you can go, I'll take you. Jingyu went to ask Qinggu. After learning about some special things to take note of, Qinbai finally got permission to go to the forest with Jingyu. Qinbai naturally couldn't dress so casually. Chapter 1084. After changing into a set of tight-fitting black clothes, he followed Jingyu out. Jingyu and Qinbai walked towards the other side of the forest. After walking for a while, Jingyu climbed onto Silver Wind's back. She turned to look at Qinbai and said, Sit on Silver Arrow's back. Don't pull on its fur or it will get angry. Qinbai quietly looked at Silver Arrow, who was standing in front of him. Seeing Silver Arrow lower its body slightly, a hint of surprise appeared in his eyes. He raised his head slightly and looked at Jingyu. Sit on it. Jingyu looked at Qinbai's dumbfounded expression and smiled faintly. She said, Silver Arrow won't bite you. Qinbai looked as if he did not want to. He was a bit scared as he sat on the back of the Silver Arrow. The Silver Arrow carried Qinbai's body and stood up. The weight made the Silver Arrow uncomfortable. It had never been ridden by a man before. However, it had no choice but to obey Jingyu's orders. Let's go. Jingyu looked at Qinbai and instructed Silver Arrow and Silver Wind to run into the forest. Qinbai sat on Silver Arrow's back and swayed left and right, making Silver Arrow very uncomfortable. Qinbai, just do it like riding a horse. Keep your body low. Jingyu looked at Qinbai's disheveled appearance and smiled faintly as she called out to him. Qinbai heard Jingyu's words and looked at Jingyu's actions as she rode Silver Wind. He followed suit and clamped his feet slightly on Silver Arrow's abdomen, pressing his body forward. Only then did he feel much more comfortable. Haha. Jingyu smiled faintly as she watched In Jian chase after her. Compared to the Black Qilin, the two gray wolves, Silver Arrow and Silver Wind, were obviously much more agile. Their movements were extremely fast. The two gray wolves shuttled through the forest with two people on their backs, which made Qinbai feel an indescribable thrilling pleasure. Silver Arrow and Silver Wind, the two gray wolves, could clearly identify the obstacles in front of them in this forest and easily avoid them. Their vigorous figures and fast speed made Qinbai gasp in amazement. After running for a while, the two gray wolves finally ran side by side. You are a fast learner. Jingyu looked at Qinbai, who was already learning. She had a faint smile on her face as she spoke. It's because you taught me well. A rare faint smile appeared on Qinbai's calm face. Looking at the smile on Qinbai's face, she suddenly felt as if an iceberg had melted and a spring breeze blew in her face. Surprise flashed across Jingyu's eyes. Looking at Qinbai, she finally discovered the difference between Qinbai and Number 9. Although the two of them looked the same, their auras were different. Number 9 gave people the feeling that she was very ordinary and very close, while Qinbai gave people the feeling that he was high and mighty and kept people thousands of miles away. Even after interacting with Qinbai for so long, Jingyu still felt that Qinbai seemed a little cold. Only in that moment did Jingyu suddenly feel as if she saw herself in Qinbai's eyes. Let's take a break. Jingyu and Qinbai stopped by a spring. Jingyu raised her hand and patted Inwin's head, letting the two big guys rest in the river. She stood on a big rock and looked into the distance, as if trying to determine the direction. Chapter 1085. Jingyu, where are we going? Qinbai looked at Jingyu and realized that he hadn't asked Jingyu where they were going. We're going to find the pride of lions. Jingyu stood on a high place and heard Qinbai's question. She smiled faintly and turned to look at Qinbai. Jingyu's words shocked Qinbai. What's wrong? Are you scared? Jingyu jumped down from the boulder and looked at Qinbai. Aren't you a member of the Holy Family? Don't you know what I'm capable of? Jingyu walked towards Qinbai as she spoke. Her dark eyes suddenly turned into a bright golden color. The golden color was like a flame and was so dazzling. She stared at Qinbai and smiled faintly. Qinbai looked at Jingyu's eyes and frowned slightly. I'm just a little surprised, huh? Jingyu looked at Qinbai and assumed that he was frightened. She looked happy and pursed her lips. Don't worry, I won't let you get hurt. Jingyu's words shocked Qinbai. He looked at Jingyu's golden eyes and saw the determination in them. Qinbai's heart trembled slightly. He stared at Jingyu and didn't say anything for a long time. Come and drink some water. We'll reach our destination soon. Jingyu looked sideways at Qinbai and said. Qinbai lowered his eyes to hide the light in his eyes. When he turned to look at Jingyu, there was no other meaning in his eyes. Okay. Qinbai squatted down at the mouth of the spring and looked at Jingyu drinking water. He smiled faintly. As he drank the sweet spring water, something in his heart seemed to be watered by the spring water and sprouted little by little. Jingyu and Qinbai rested for a while and continued their search. They walked for a long distance and it was already noon when they reached their destination. Jingyu and Qinbai sat on Yin Jian and Yin Feng's backs and looked at the plains in the distance and took a deep breath. We're here. Jingyu looked at the familiar plains and smiled faintly. We're here. Qinbai narrowed his eyes and looked at the plains below. He didn't see the pride of lions that Jingyu mentioned. He frowned in confusion and looked at Jingyu. Let's go down from here. Jingyu flipped down from Yin Feng's back and waved at Qinbai. She patted Yin Feng's head and smiled faintly. You two hide first. I'll come find you later. After Jingyu said that, the two big guys whimpered and really disappeared into the forest. Qinbai looked at how obedient Yin Jian and Yin Feng were to Jingyu and his eyes were filled with shock. Let's go. Jingyu lowered her body and slid down a small path on the side. Standing on the plain, she was blocked by the weeds. Jingyu seemed to be very familiar with it as she led Jingyu to find a path that could be walked on. Jingyu, why are you so familiar with this place? Qinbai's eyes looked confused. He looked at Jingyu, who had stopped moving, and asked in a small voice. Chapter 1086. When Jingyu heard Qinbai's question, she smiled faintly and said, Of course it's because I've been here before. When Jingyu finished speaking, Qinbai's eyes suddenly revealed a look of understanding. He understood what Jingyu meant and suddenly remembered that Jingyu grew up in the Roman forest. How could she not know about these places? I used to come here often to play with the lions, Jingyu said with a smile. But I always ended up in a miserable state. After saying that, Jingyu stuck out her tongue. She waved at Qinbai and the two of them went to a mound. Their heads slowly popped out. Qinbai followed Jingyu's gaze and when he saw the scene in front of him, his eyes widened. The place blocked by the mound was actually a downhill path. On a large plain below, there were countless lions gathered. Those lions with golden fur and incomparably beautiful fur all had their heads raised. Some were walking, some were lying down, and some were playing. They were all gathered at the bottom of the hill. Do you see it? A pride of lions. Jingyu's eyes lit up and she said, When I was young, Yin Jian Yin Feng, and I accidentally broke into this place and alarmed the lions here. We were immediately surrounded and chased out. Later on, I couldn't take this lying down and came to harass them time and time again. But every time, I was chased with my life on the line. Jingyu smiled proudly and said, But at that time, I almost burned their fur, so I managed to get back at them. Cough cough. When Qinbai heard Jingyu's words, a deep smile appeared on his face. He looked at Jingyu and shook his head helplessly. It was as if he saw Jingyu's mischievous look. Qinbai, stay here and don't move. Jingyu tilted her head slightly to look at Qinbai and said, If you run away later, don't even look back when I call you. These lions have a strong sense of territory. As long as you run into the forest and out of the plain, they won't chase after you. Jingyu looked at Qinbai seriously and said, Don't worry, I won't mess around. If I can't beat them, I'll run. Jingyu, what do you want to do? Do you want to take revenge? Qin Bai looked at Jingyu and frowned slightly as he asked Jingyu. Why would I? Jingyu looked at Qin Bai in amusement and said, I want to turn this pride of lions into my support. Jingyu narrowed her eyes and said with a determined look in her eyes. Do. When Qin Bai heard Jingyu's words, his expression changed instantly. He narrowed his eyes and said, Do you want to subdue this pride of lions? Just like Yin Jian and Yin Feng? That's right. A cold look appeared in Jingyu's eyes as she said faintly, Wait here. How will you know the result if you try it out? After Jingyu said this, she turned her head and smiled brightly at Qin Bai. That bright smile was even more dazzling than the sun. In the moment that Qin Bai was in a daze, he saw Jingyu moving down the slope like a cat. Jingyu? Qin Bai's heart tightened. He reached out to grab Jingyu, but he was a step too slow. Jingyu was still moving down. As she approached, Qin Bai's expression suddenly tensed up. Jingyu was almost standing on the lion's back. However, she could not really stand on it. If the lion swung her hard, Jingyu would fly out. Chapter 1088. The corner of Jingyu's mouth twitched fiercely, and she rushed to the side. Fortunately, she had learned some skills from riding Silver Arrow and Silver Wind all day. If she didn't give way, she wouldn't be able to get on the lion's back. Qin Bai's hands were almost about to tear the soil under his hands. Seeing Jingyu riding on a lion, he was shocked. The lions that were biting from the side were almost biting Jingyu's feet, but they couldn't bite her. Come here. Jingyu pulled the fur on the lion's head. The lion was originally charging towards the hill, but Jingyu didn't let it go up. She pulled its fur and ran in circles on the grassland. Behind her, a group of lions chased after her frantically. Jingyu was not in a hurry and just let it run around. Her pair of golden eyes searched for the figure she had been looking for in the pride of lions behind her, the king of the pride. Wolves had a leader, lions had a king. As long as she could conquer the Lion King, Jingyu would be one step closer to success. Jingyu's sharp eyes were paying attention to the movements of the pride of lions. From their attacks to the direction they ran, they were all learned. Lions were social animals, even more so in the Roman forest. Jingyu could always identify the Lion King's position at a glance. Today, it was an accident. It was purely an accident. Jingyu looked at herself with disdain. She had messed up at such a critical moment. Now, there were so many lions running. It was going to take a lot of effort to find them. While Jingyu was dodging and controlling the direction, she was still looking for the Lion King. Qin Bai, who was standing on the hill, seemed to be moving. Jingyu looked at Qin Bai and said anxiously, Qin Bai, don't move. Qin Bai, who wanted to stand still, suddenly froze. Looking at Jingyu's diving figure, he frowned slightly. Why did he hear another meaning in Jingyu's words? Was she asking him to be held back? Qin Bai's face darkened slightly. He finally squatted on the ground and continued to watch Jingyu's movements. Jingyu had just finished shouting at Qin Bai when she found the lion she was looking for. It was a huge lion with white spots on its forehead. It was a lion with glossy fur and was following beside Jingyu. The lions all moved away from it. Everyone was changing their movements regularly. Only this lion seemed to be in a protected position. It seemed to be outside the pride, but also seemed to be the center of the pride. Jingyu knew that this lion was the one she was looking for. Her eyes flashed faintly as she closed in on the Lion King. The lion seemed to have sensed Jingyu's movements. They chased and bit even more fiercely. Jingyu couldn't dodge in time and a piece of her clothes was bitten off. Jingyu's face darkened slightly. She looked at the distance and immediately let go. Under Qin Bai's astonished gaze, Jingyu landed on the ground. She suddenly rolled and rushed in the direction of the Lion King. The lions that were chasing Jingyu all came to an emergency stop and swarmed towards Jingyu. However, Jingyu escaped and the lions collided with each other. Chapter 1089. Aha, so silly. Jingyu smiled and rolled under the belly of a lion. She agilely flipped up, aimed at the Lion King, and rode on its body again. Roar! The Lion King was much more ferocious than the lion from before. The moment Jingyu went up, she was almost thrown down. Her legs clamped tightly onto the Lion King's stomach as she leaned back and suddenly turned around. Damn it, so ferocious! Jingyu felt a lingering fear in her heart. She put away her playful thoughts and grabbed the Lion King's fur. She twisted it violently to one side, wanting to flip the Lion King over. Unfortunately, her strength was too weak. He could only make the Lion King turn around and run wildly again. Jingyu's strength had been reduced by more than half. At this moment, she was really out of strength. She could only stabilize her body and let the Lion King struggle wildly. It wanted to throw Jingyu off, but it couldn't. Sigh, why bother? Jingyu sighed silently. She couldn't be bothered with the lion and let it run. Anyway, it was fine as long as it didn't get thrown off. After struggling for a long time, Jingyu didn't move at all. However, the lion was very angry. It turned and rushed to the top of the hill, wanting to rush up the tree. Jingyu was shocked when she saw the Lion King's actions. This lion was really not afraid of death. The corner of Jingyu's mouth twitched fiercely. She pulled hard with her hand and pulled the lion in the wrong direction. Taking advantage of this inertia, she fiercely flipped the lion to the ground. Her knee pressed against its mouth, and her hand pressed down hard on its head. Hey, big guy, are you convinced? Jingyu's eyes flashed with golden light. She was proud and passionate like a king on the grassland. When she looked at the Lion King, the two pairs of eyes that were so similar made the Lion King let out a soft whimper from his throat. Are you convinced? Jingyu narrowed her eyes and said with a faint smile. The Lion King was pressed to the ground by Jingyu and couldn't move. It could only let out a low growl from its throat. The lions that were chasing after them all surrounded Jingyu. They looked at Jingyu with vigilance, as if they were ready to charge at any time. Jingyu looked at the group of lions and narrowed her eyes slightly. Her golden eyes flashed with a warning look. Jingyu's hand touched the Lion King that was pressed to the ground. She seemed to be able to clearly feel the consciousness coming from its body. Remember! Jingyu lowered her head and looked at the lion. She narrowed her eyes and curled her lips. She slowly let go of her hand and said, "If you want to look good, I'll let you get up if you're willing to admit defeat and let me ride you willingly." After the Lion King heard Jingyu's words, it roared unwillingly. The displeasure in its voice was very obvious and there was a hint of struggle in its voice. Oh. You still want to resist? Jingyu had a faint smile in her eyes. She calmly let go of the Lion King's hand and said, "Okay. If you don't accept it, I'll beat you until you do." Qinbai was happy to see Jingyu subduing the Lion King, but he didn't expect that Jingyu would release the Lion King after a short while. She looked at the Lion King with a smile. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.